Hello and welcome to this special edition of In Review. So we're going to be breaking down full spoilers of Avengers Endgame. So if you haven't seen it yet, turn away now. Unless you just don't care about it and you'd want to...
Why did they have to turn around?
I think they'll still hear it, wouldn't they?
Maybe
Take off your headphones.
Maybe turn it off.
Press pause, go and watch Endgame and then come back.
And then press play. His intro. James, please.
So I'm joined today, firstly, by James.
Hello.
James has been on every episode.
I survived. I have been on every episode of Everything on the Insider Network.
Yeah, unlike the rest of us.
Insert applause.
I missed one, okay.
Steve is here with me.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. You know me.
Howdy. Okay, that's new.
Yeah.
He's the sheriff.
And introducing our very special guest today, a dear old friend of mine, Captain Dave.
What's up? Hello, hello, hello.
How you doing, Dave?
Not too shabby. How are you all doing?
Yeah, pretty good. Saw Endgame, didn't we?
Yeah.
So, you know, we survived.
I'm more than ready. More than ready. I literally saw it, finished watching it like an hour ago. So
it's fresh
very
for you.
ready for this
fresh
conversation.
For you. Yeah.
We had the double bill, didn't we?
I get these the feeling with these sorts of big event films where it's like, oh, I hope I don't die before that comes out.
Yeah.
You get that?
I'm actually worried because I've been saying that pretty much my last 4 or 5 years. So now I'm worried that my time's up.
Well, we've done well.
It could happen to me at any
This
moment.
is getting really dark.
Well, I have that every now and then. I'm like, oh, what if I die? But like, I'll never know what happens in episode 9.
You never know. But to be honest, it's probably at least your worries at that point.
Now, after Endgame, it's now.
Yeah, but if you're a kid and you die, and just call Make a Wish and they can sort it out for you. Happy days.
Oh, wow.
So we get started.
So, I kind of just want to get started with everyone's kind of general, overall impressions. In fact, you know what? We do this thing, Dave, on our show where we go through trailers and we just sort of summarise with a simple yes or a no.
Or a maybe.
Or a maybe. Just to sort of do a general check. Is everyone a yes with this film?
Yeah.
Everyone's a yes.
Undoubtedly.
Dave's a definite yes.
That's a strong yes.
He's at all caps yes.
He's an exclamation
caps
mark.
lock on.
Caps lock yes. Fair play. Right. So James, tell me, what's your overall thoughts?
I don't know. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. I had a good time having done the double bill, going straight from Infinity War to Endgame. Getting that back to back, I think it worked really well. As I'm sure that's something you'll talk about when you get to it. Yeah. It's long. It is really long. But if I wanted to spend 3 hours with characters that I love, then I've got the right sort of characters. And
sure, that's fair.
We've put so much time and investment into these characters that I don't think I'd want to spend 3 hours with any other characters in film, really. As far as the film itself goes, it does have its problems for me. We'll get into it a little bit more, but I think the second act kind of brought it down a little bit for me. But there are some really big positives in there, and like for what it does for the universe. And to round off this phase and all this original Avengers sort of stuff, I thought it was really well done. And yeah, I'm happy with what we got as a whole.
What about you, Dave? What are your general thoughts?
Well, when it comes to this sort of stuff, I try and look at it irrationally because I know I have my blinders up. Marvel can do no wrong for me, so I try to look at it irrationally. But I love this film. There are plot holes and threads you can pull on, and I think it would start to unravel if you did that. Right. But a part of me thinks some of these may get answered later on. I think there are some loose ends that are on purpose loose ends.
Interesting.
And some things I think they just overlooked. But in all, it was everything I wanted Infinity War to be, and I loved Infinity War. So, but yeah, that's my first initial thought. I won't start going into it just yet.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Steve, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a step up from Infinity War. For me, a big part is the interactions between kind of characters and that. We got a little bit of that in Infinity War, but in Endgame, obviously, we had like some kind of unusual pairings with like Rhodey and like Nebula and stuff like that. So it's just the kind of small interactions and just like having like a time skip and seeing everyone come together, form like these weird friendship groups is really, really good. But yeah, it is a long film and it's a little bit bloated, I think, throughout the second act. It can be trimmed a lot down. But
yeah, I think that's sort of moving to my thoughts quickly. I think that's my biggest thing as well, is the sort of overstuffedness of it. I think to be perfectly honest with you, I think Infinity War and Endgame could have been 1 3-hour film if you're going to do that, rather than a 3-hour film and however long Infinity War is. I think there's an edit there where you can do that. But that being said, the stuff that was in there, the very obviously fan servicey stuff, I think it worked. I think I liked some of those winks. I liked some of those, let's just sort of jump to one of the main things. The big battle, like it was great seeing that. You couldn't have not done that.
Yeah.
It was kind of like in Rogue One with Vader. Like you couldn't not have Vader be a badass at that time. You had to show us that, and they had to have that big battle.
That was my main thing I was disappointed about in Infinity War, was because of everything that happened in Civil War, you didn't have that big battle. Yeah, you had the battle in Wakanda, but everyone was... as soon as the film started and I saw that this person's going there and this person's going there, I thought, oh no, like I wanted that big battle.
Yeah.
And when they all came together at the end of this one and that they actually all charged off, and obviously Cap finally said Avengers Assemble.
Yeah.
I couldn't... I normally I don't like showing my emotions when I'm watching stuff, but I had the biggest grin on my face. I'm so happy.
Let's go through it then from sort of the beginning. So we're going to give you guys kind of an overview of the plot, which I'm sure if you've seen it, which I hope you have, because really this is a film. It to be perfectly honest with you, it didn't surprise me too much, but it was nice. It was the things that I wanted to see. So even though I sort of thought I would see these things, I wanted to see them.
Yeah.
So. And first time viewing's everything. I think
really is,
some stuff before you went into it, it wouldn't have the same impact.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100% agreed. So definitely don't just listen to this because you might check it out. You want to see what's like. I'm telling you now, stop listening to this. Don't give us the views if you haven't seen it. Go and watch it and then come back because you're going to benefit from it. So we're going to sort of go through the plot, sort of start to finish as best we can. Dave, you're going to be very helpful for this because you've seen it much more recently than we have.
Yeah, true, but then you know my short-term memory as well. So.
Also true. So between the four of us, I'm sure we'll manage.
It's fine. It's December. We've got this.
So we open with a really cool cold opening before we have any titles or anything like that with Hawkeye and his family getting dusted. I can't help but think that could have been a post-credit scene for Infinity War, or that could have just been in Infinity War. It kind of felt like an afterthought almost.
It could have been, but I feel the way Infinity War ended with Thanos sitting there and then the credits just hit, everyone had this in the cinema, had this sort of, what? Like, that's that done. I don't think they needed to hit home. You've just seen so many people get dusted. If then Hawkeye's family got dusted, you'd be like, okay, well, what's one more? I think by putting it at the start of this film, it reminded you of that feeling you had at the end of Infinity War, to be like, oh yeah, we hate this guy. Not Hawkeye.
Screw your family, Hawkeye.
Just want to put it out there. I love Hawkeye, but anyway,
he's great.
I feel like putting that at the start brought you back to that feeling you had at the end of Infinity War.
Yeah, that's fair.
Gut wrenching.
I completely agree with
it.
Yeah, people were gasping when we watched it.
Yeah,
very kind of audible. In our kind of cinema, clapping and gasping and crying.
It's an emotional scene, and it really brings you back in. Just like exactly what's going to happen, because of the trailers and stuff and everything that we're seeing. And
I mean, there's no easy way to kill kids in films, is there? Especially in a Disney film, and I think they did it very well. There's talking about the Disney thing, there's a lot of violence in this. Like,
it's dark.
Like when Ronan, we'll get to it shortly, but when Ronan cold blood stabs a dude, and you're like, oh wow, you just killed that guy off camera, but you felt it. You could hear the sword, going through. This was a dark Disney movie.
When you had Hawkeye and Black Widow deciding who's going to die, and it was really kind of casual. I'll jump. No, I'll jump.
Yeah, this is pretty morbid.
Yeah.
Yeah, would have been really weird if they took a plot twist there and actually had it that they each one was thinking the other one, and then they fought to the death. That was real dark.
Spoke at the same time.
They just chucked the Red Skull in.
Yeah, I love you, Red Skull. Okay, so where did we go after that? Where did we go after that?
We cut to Tony.
Is that straight to the 5 years later? Oh no,
Marvel Studios logo.
Marvel Studios logo, and we got Tony in space. Tony and Nebula, which is the first kind of pairing. We got a little bit of a tease from that in Infinity War, but then we see them playing football together.
Yeah, Nebula and Tony Stark in space, just sort of surviving with each other, and then his message that he leaves for Pepper.
Yeah, which was...
I feel like there's some fat to be trimmed there. I don't think I needed to see them playing that little finger football game. I think this is just... When all these reports came out that the Russos were sitting there watching the edit and they're like, there's nothing we can cut, this film has to be 3 hours... there was a lot of times I was sitting there thinking, really? You couldn't have cut this bit, or you couldn't have done this in a shorter, you couldn't have cut this down. I'm just going to say 3 hours, I think it's too long. I think it's too long. I don't think films have to be that long.
I think that's one of the things where I completely disagree. I feel like sometimes what some films miss is the small interactions between people. Like, it doesn't all have to be go, go, go. And I know, like, it doesn't. Like, you can have bits where they're just sitting talking, but sometimes you need the day-to-day stuff as well. If it really slows down the film, like some films, none are coming to mind now, but when you're sitting there and you're bored, 'cause you're like, do I need to watch him wash his face?
No, I'm definitely a small moments guy as well, but I just think in the grand scheme of things, a film doesn't need to be that long. I mean, personally, I don't know if we want to quite get to it yet, but I'll trim all of the time travel stuff, like all of it. Every single part of that, I'd have done that so differently.
I think it's just showing the personality between Tony and Nebula and how kind of stark and different they are, really. And just showing Nebula, once again, kind of getting her on like another redemption kind of factor. We saw a bit of that in Guardians too, where she's not just a kind of an assassin, she's got a little bit of a soft interior. She's got to get through it first, you know? Yeah.
I think they needed to show the bond that Tony Stark and Nebula had built at least over those 20 days.
Yeah, because they're complete strangers.
If you look where she was just before that, why would she care about the Avengers and the people of Earth? She wouldn't. She'd meet up with Rocket and then zoom off again. I think they needed to show that, okay, she built a trust and a friendship with other people other than the Guardians, or at least Tony. But
so from there, we get probably one of my favourite interactions in the whole film right off the bat, and that's the kind of first real interaction between Tony and Steve we get from after Civil War, where Tony just pretty much tells him that, like, I was right. You should have listened to me. This is why we should have been together. This is why you should have put your petty politics aside. I saw this coming a while ago. I warned you all. I told you so, essentially.
Suit armor around the world.
Yeah, I mean, I do 100% get Steve Rogers. This is not Steve sitting next to me. I do 100% get Steve's, like, you know, his like ideas and, you know, why he doesn't believe that and why the whole Hydra thing would lead him to think that way. Just for me, I've even in the comics, I was always a Team Tony guy, and in Ultimate Alliance too, I was always Team Tony. So I don't know if that was just me, but this was his real, like, I was right moment.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of both. That bit kind of shocked me when that happened, because I expected the Marvel to do a Marvel where they say, "Oh, no, everything's happy now."
Yeah, you're right.
And they didn't, and I'm glad they kept that going. And I feel like not only was he pissed off, but you kind of used Steve as an outlet for his rage and, like, how upset he was. Everyone else could talk to one another, whereas he was stuck on a ship with Nebula.
Yeah.
And I felt like he was like, do you know what, Thanos isn't here, but you are, so screw you. This is because of you. If we hadn't fought, we would have been together. But no, I'm kind of glad they, since how they were going to do the jump forwards 5 years, it made sense for them to still have that interaction then.
Well, that's the next thing. So pretty much after that, we get 3 words that I know Steve in particular is not crazy about, and that's the 5 years later. So what do you think about that, Steve?
I was just surprised they went for 5 years. I thought it was just too much. Like, I expected like a year or 2 years, but like 5 years was such a massive jump, and the way that they kind of presented the world after that was like, it wasn't post-apocalyptic, but it wasn't like great either. Like the shot of showing, you know, all the boats next to the Statue of Liberty and showing like a darker New York and that, and how, you know, having Cap in like the weird kind of therapy group session, it just felt really off to me. And then like just to have all these characters aged 5 years in advance. Before we go into that again, interesting enough, you skipped over Captain Marvel, and that kind of my point of her, you know, being in this film for probably about 3 minutes, because she's so bloody powerful.
Yeah,
get rid of her.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that's what it is. She's too powerful, and there was the same problem they had with Vision. But what I liked about what they did with the Vision in Infinity War is they really created an interesting way to sort of nullify him and put him to the background. And they sort of didn't really do that well enough with Captain Marvel, I didn't think. They just sort of said like, oh yeah, I'm dealing with this stuff on other worlds. Yeah, but it's like, well, no, hang on, because we're going to fix everything on all the worlds, so maybe help us out.
So that Earth is the epicenter of like the, you know, the energy spike and that. So surely staying off. It was the same as well with Thor and how they kind of kept him a little bit as well with Fat Guy Thor.
Yeah, what did you think of Fat Guy Thor, Dave?
Thick Thor.
I thought it was funny, the first reveal. I mean, to be honest, I thought he was overshadowed by Korg, but he's just a favourite of mine.
Yeah,
I thought it was funny, but when you say about trimming the fat, I felt like that was a scene that could have been cut for time.
Yeah,
not the whole scene in the cabin, but Marvel they're good at doing their comedy, but sometimes they can take it too far, where it goes from that's funny to is this like a parody of itself at this point. And I felt like Guardians 2 ran that risk, where they made too many Drax jokes. and they made him a comedy character when before he was funny because he was so serious.
Exactly,
When
yeah.
he did the funny thing, it was so rare and it was hilarious. Then in Guardians 2, he was constantly laughing the whole film, and it was too much. I felt like in that scene with Thor in the cabin, they didn't. It's like, okay, he's fat, he's given up. They didn't. None of that was further in the plot or having character interactions. It was just for
Thor's fat
being a child. Like they didn't need it to go on for that long. Like,
I think it definitely worked for maybe just that scene. If you're having that scene there, just have it there, and then they bring up Thanos. They bring up that they've got a way to deal with it. Okay, he's serious now. He's over it. He's back. To carry it on and have his weird monologue about the Dark World and the Jane Foster stuff. It just felt so weird and hokey. Maybe bring him back, and then when he goes back to see his mum and stuff, maybe then have a quick I'm not feeling quite sure of myself anymore, and then bring him back again after the mum speech. But to keep the drunk stuff up, I just thought it was the wrong choice.
Yeah, I think there are a few times in the film. Thor was probably the main character that it happened to. Like you were saying, it felt very similar to Drax and what they did as a reaction to Ragnarok, which obviously went on to be huge, and then everyone loved the comedy in that. And I think every joke just seemed to drag with him after that.
Yeah.
And I
just agree.
It's just messy because we had all the stuff in Ragnarok established, him, the haircut, losing the eye, and then the hammer, and then in Infinity War he gets an eye back, and then obviously in this he gets back Mjolnir and that. It's just they keep resetting his character back and forth. They don't know how to deal with him, and it's really annoying.
Yeah. Well, it looks like obviously. Well, I'm sure we're going to get to this a bit later, but I completely agree. They're starting to take him more down a comedy route, which, as long as they do it right, isn't the worst thing, because he was one of the least interesting characters before that. I mean, if you look at the Dark World,
do we have to?
as long as they do it right, Ragnarok was really well, but it does look like they're taking his character a completely different route. The fact at the end of this film he was joining up with the Guardians, it looks like his character is going to go completely different. Different way. I've lost my train of thought.
No, yeah, you're right. We'll definitely get to that later.
War in space.
From what he normally does. It's just they've just got to be careful not to toe that line and just make him completely different from what he was once before. I know characters change and evolve over time.
Yeah.
But he's going forwards. He's not de-evolving into a child.
No, agreed. Completely agreed. So going back to sort of the beginning of the film where we sort of see the 5 years later and we see what the world's like. What do you guys think of that? Because for me, I was really kind of disappointed in this. I mean, Thanos' whole thing was exactly 50-50, exactly in half, no bias, the rich, the poor, doesn't matter, just random half.
Yeah.
But the world seemed to be like a Mad Max, I Am Legend world where there's no people left. In the 90s, there was 4 billion people on the planet. So after the snap, there would have been 4 billion people on the planet. I don't think it would have been as shut down as it was. It seemed empty and desolate, and I don't think it would be like that. I thought that was really strange that it was like that.
I think there's two things probably you need to think about going into it. I think maybe why they jumped 5 years, instead of just saying it a year later or 6 months later, is because I think they wanted to show that 5 years later people can't move on. It was in the 90s, there might have only been 4 billion people, but there were always 4 billion people. Another 4 billion didn't just disappear.
Yeah.
And I think, with Cap's therapy group, they're trying to show it's in 5 years.
What did you think of that?
Yeah, it was fine. I like how the Russo finally got his cameo.
Yeah.
They cut it out of every film he's been in, and he finally got one.
Only one though. Does that mean the other Russo exactly half? Just the other one got snapped.
The other Russo gone. But I think that's why they had Cap's therapy session, stuff like that, to try and show it's been 5 years. You actually think about how long 5 years is, what you were doing.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a long period of time.
I just feel like it would make more sense if he wasn't Captain America-ing, if he was more of a public speaker or something, or a motivational speaker for people rather than, or even something as stupid as a podcast or a radio show, something to a bit more people than a little 5-person therapy group. It just felt so strange to me. It felt like the weirdest thing ever. And as well, and but if you saw, if you was a person in the world and you saw oh my god, Steve Rogers, Captain America is hosting a therapy group. Do you think more than 4 people would turn up? I didn't understand it. It felt so odd to me.
the thoughts that go around in my head about it is, one, he's old school. It's like an old AA group meeting. It's like the meetings Falcon was doing in Winter Soldier with other army
that's a good
veterans.
point.
It's almost like one of those army veteran things that they do where they go and sit and chat. I suppose it's more personal when it's just 5 people instead of there being 200 people there. And again, as you say, it's been 5 years. Maybe more people turned up to these things at the start, but now that might be just the one he's having that day. The next day he might have another group of 10, and the day after that it might be another group.
He was either a really good therapist and just got rid of people really quick, or he's a really bad one. I mean, people were like, why are we listening to this old man, this crazy old man?
But then, like, as they said when they were chatting, he was like, oh yeah, I went on a date, he cried, and then I cried later. Like, he spoke about it as if that's such a regular thing, that people are still that depressed that they can't move on. And I think that was why those groups are like that. Because if people were that depressed, you wouldn't be going, let's go to a therapy group. You would be sitting at home, or you would just be wallowing in your own filth. And I think that's why the world's gone to pot as well. Because, okay, half the people have gone. Well, there were a lot of jobs were created for those people that were gone. So now, whereas before you might have been able to survive with just, say, 4 billion people, now they can't because they've relied on that increased population.
Yeah.
And now they're gone. The people that are left aren't able to work because they're in such a state of turmoil. How many people probably committed suicide after that?
Wow, that's a really horrible point, but interesting. Yeah, no, you're right. You're so right.
The increase in crime, the increase of suicide, stuff like that. Like, if you really want to look into it, would be incredibly huge. Imagine if out of everyone, your entire family died.
Yeah.
Like, some people would keep going.
Well, that brings us quite nicely onto the next thing, which is Ronin, or Hawkeye, I suppose. But they didn't mention it in the film, which I thought was a missed opportunity. But obviously, in the comics, it becomes Ronin, and this is sort of the incarnation that we saw in this film. What did you guys think of that? Because I was going to say I loved it. I thought it was badass.
Yeah.
Dave.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, if he was just like, let's find the Avengers after his family died. I mean, can you imagine that if you're alone on some ranch somewhere by yourself? And I do like, by the way, how they didn't actually show his family get dusted. They did it off screen.
Yeah.
And now it shows the same confusion you would have.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great. You'd be like, what the hell just happened? But if you just turn around, they were just gone.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think, oh, they've evaporated, would you?
No, I completely agree. In fact, you do see some dust flying away with the first daughter, but like he wouldn't connect it, so you sort of think like, and it's that awful thing of like, oh, we know, but he doesn't know, and it kind of gets you right in your gut, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's awful.
Sorry, I'll go. No, you go.
No, that's fine. I'm done.
I was just gonna say, imagine that afterwards. You don't know where they've gone. He's probably thinking it's some enemy of S.H.I.E.L.D. that's kidnapped them or teleported them away or something. Who's he going to go to? A neighbour? Like, there's nobody around. Maybe he turns on the news, turns on the TV, and there's just static going on. Then he's thinking, okay, a worldwide thing's happened. But you still don't know what's happened.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. If you were in the middle of New York, you're seeing these people disappear left, right, and centre. You know something bad's happening. But you imagine how in such a state of shock he must have been in for so long before he actually found out what happened, Yeah, I think it completely explains why you would go that hard.
It's true, and kind of he sort of explains his mindset, his MO, when he's like, 50% of the people, were gone and you were left and you don't deserve it, and he kills them. And it's kind of ruthless, but it's kind of, you totally see where he's coming from.
Well, it was ruthless, but I want to see him a little bit more hardened, because after that, once he joined back with the Avengers, he was...
They seem to drop it. They seem to drop it. You're right.
Guys.
Yeah.
He's gone around the world killing all these like gang leaders and that. I thought he'd be like a super criminal, this right?
Yeah, and when they got to the Vormir stuff, which we'll get to a little later, when we got there, it kind of felt like, and he was like, no, it has to be me. You know what I've become. And it's sort of like, oh yeah, I forgot you'd become that, because we hadn't seen that in about an hour.
You're cracking jokes, yeah.
Yeah, I did feel that too.
Yeah.
They missed a real opportunity though. They were in Tokyo. He had like a samurai fight, and they didn't call him like the Ronin. They could have said like, "Oh, there's this guy. He's the we call him Ronin." But they didn't drop it in there. I was a little bit upset.
Kind of like Batman in a way, like in the shadows.
Yeah,
scared of him. Yeah,
that'd have been cool. But I loved it anyway. I think it looked great visually. That stuff was amazing. That was gorgeous. That whole fight scene.
As well.
Yeah.
Nicely. Yeah.
It was a bit John Wick.
Actually, thinking about it, he wasn't actually cracking that many jokes as it went on. Like, if you actually think about every scene that Hawkeye was in, other than the one bit where they're laughing when him and Nat first go into space, like, he's not saying that much. Most of the time, like, he's the one willing to go back. I think that's mainly because he wants to see his family.
Yeah.
Like, he's not... I think because everyone else is cracking so many jokes and he's there, you figure, like, he's part of the comedy. But I'm actually trying to think back now. I can barely think of any times where he made jokes.
The best thing for me was when he went back, like, for the first test, and and he ran to the door and called his daughter, and he just disappeared as she came down the stairs. That really
that's cool.
Poor guy, can't get a break.
Speaking of the jokes, though, I think we can probably all agree that the most jokes per minute came from Paul Rudd. So of all the however many millions and 5 versions that Doctor Strange saw, was he just waiting for the rat to press the right button? Is that what all those versions were?
Come on.
I couldn't work out whether it was the rat actually did anything.
Yeah,
or
it pressed the button.
Did it actually
It pressed the button, yeah.
Okay.
That's the whole undoing of Thanos' master plan.
1 in 14 million. Is
The 1 in 14,605,000, whatever the number is, plan was based on a rat pressing the right button.
What a mouse. Mickey Mouse, come on.
Missed opportunity. Yeah, I thought that was a little...
You're mine now.
I thought that was a little bit weird.
Well, it explains why there was 14 million different versions. Probably half of those, the rat went off to eat some cheese somewhere. So.
This is ridiculous.
But I kind of like how I did like Paul Rudd. I mean, for full disclosure, I don't like either of the Ant-Man films that much. I like Paul Rudd. But the Ant-Man hasn't really done much for me. In fact, I didn't see Ant-Man and the Wasp until like very recently because Stephen James told me I need to see it before Endgame. So I was like, oh, fine. But I guess this sort of comes onto my biggest problem with this film, which is the time travel in general. I think it breaks the MCU a little bit. I feel like any problem they come up to now, it's just like, all right, better get the old pin particles and the Tony Stark watch, jump in the machine, and away we go.
This was a fault I was thinking about on the way home. I always think about my movies on the way home. And there's a couple of things I thought about. They never clarified how they went back. They just said if they could channel that or figure out a way of focusing that. They never actually said how they did it. So I think maybe they're going to just do movie shenanigans and say, we can't do that anymore because of X, Y, and Z. One thing I did want to say just before we moved on was any fears people had about Ant-Man being too different from the rest of the characters, I think were completely cut from this film. Like, you can see how direction and editing and one person's design for how they want a character can be completely different when that character is then taken by another set of directors or another writer.
True.
Because I feel a lot of people said,
it's exactly the same with the Guardians, yeah.
Yeah, like when Ant-Man was in Civil War, people were like, oh, I don't know how that's going to work. He doesn't seem to fit. Well, you put him in Endgame. It was just like he was one of the Avengers.
No, you're right. Yeah, it was. He did fit. And it
fit so well.
And to be honest with you, my favourite characterizations of Ant-Man are in Civil War and Endgame. So it's just those films don't really work for me. I think it's the style of the films that just don't feel... They feel like a poor man's Edgar Wright film, but that's a different review. That's a different review.
It wasn't as bad as the Hulk dabbing. That's what I'm gonna say.
Oh yeah, let's talk about Professor Hulk.
Oh
Yeah,
jeez.
we'll get back to time travel in a sec because I've got loads to talk about this one.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about Hulk for a sec.
So they went to the biggest brain other than, I suppose. Yeah, we're still on track. So Paul Rudd came up with the idea for time travel. His time heist idea, which they brought to Tony, which he turned down. So then they went to the next smartest person that they know. Because apparently no one knows about Reed Richards yet. Is he going to be? What's his? How are they going to justify the fact that?
30 years.
Yeah.
The next thing they're bringing in from Fox is going to be the Fantastic
So is he just like is he just an unknown person in the world at the moment? They don't know how smart he is
they are
yet.
in space.
They're in space, or they're in what's it the black realm? What was it negative realm?
Oh, the negative zone. Yeah.
Zone. They're in there at the moment. They're stuck in there.
Well, when Captain Marvel appeared to save Nebula and Tony at the beginning, I forgot all about Captain Marvel and I saw the big light and I was like, oh my god, is that the Phoenix? I don't know why I went there first, rather than like the last MCU film that came out.
You didn't even go to your favourite Silver Surfer first.
That was an orange glow.
It was very godlike. It wasn't as bad as Man of Steel, like Jesus, like doing the cross out of the ship. But you know,
it's an allegory. I was fine with that. Anyway, I said how on track we just were, and then it just took us completely off track. That's my fault. So yeah, then we went to the Jolly Green Giant, and obviously Mark Ruffalo's been working hard since the Hulk. It makes sense, you know, he didn't come out last time, so he's back working on the gamma rays.
He did hint at that at the end of Infinity War. He was saying, look, me and you, buddy, we've got something to work out here. And then, I guess they did.
Yeah.
They figured it out.
So poor old Lou Ferrigno's out of a job. So Mark Ruffalo's now the voice of Hulk the whole time, and at first I was like, okay, yeah, it's pretty cool, and then I hated the whole cafeteria celebrity thing, and it went on way too long.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's.
And the whole like, look, they don't want
to.
to like, it's like, all right, and then like he did like a dab, and it was,
I think it was just Paul Rudd being Paul Rudd. Paul, do what you want, and then Ruffalo was trying to go along with that as well, and it was just like, stop, just end right now.
I think they actually mentioned that once I saw in an interview. They said that they're given a script, they're given what they're supposed to do, and then they're given free rein to sort of do their own thing.
Yeah.
And I think jokes like that work better in. I wouldn't say in small amounts, but just not dragged out too much.
No, I completely agree.
Like about those comedies, the Seth Rogans, the Paul Rudds, I love them. They're my favourite set of like comedians. You know, comedians rolled in these circles and they're all in each other's films. They're my favourite, but I hate when they drag stuff out like that.
Yeah.
Like, and they did a little bit of it in there, but the joke itself I thought was funny, just went on a little too long.
Execution, yeah.
And so then from there we go on to a few tests that they run with Paul Rudd time traveling, and he returns as an old man,
and a baby.
as a baby. At first, my first thoughts on this was that Paul Rudd was like messing with them, and not Paul Rudd, Scott Lang was messing with them and like putting other people in the suit and sending them through. And I thought he was going to come back and just pretend that it was him and it was actually another old man and stuff, but it turned out no, it was actually him. And he had his old joke about, you know, was it the old man that peed, the baby that peed, or him that peed? But so that stuff I was kind of like, yeah, this is yeah. And then again, this sort of whole thing just felt like it could have been cut. I don't know, it felt at least cut down.
Well, then we had Tony doing the oldie advert.
I liked just before that. I liked I liked Tony's house. I liked Tony's little cabin with Pepper and what was his daughter's name? I forget. Morgan. I love you.
I think he actually in the comics he had an uncle that was called Morgan, who was actually a bad guy.
Oh right.
Don't hold me to that.
I'm holding you to it.
I thought it was Pepper's uncle. I thought in Infinity War when they're in the park.
I think in terms of like the MCU, it was Pepper's uncle, but in the comics, I think it was.
I see.
Or maybe it wasn't his uncle; it might have been his brother or something, like an evil brother that come back from the past. I don't know. That name does have significance in the comics. I can't remember exactly what it's about though.
But I love that. Like, I love you 3000. You know, go to bed or I'm going to sell all your toys. Like he felt like such a great dad, and I think considering all the daddy issues that Stark's had throughout the MCU, like it was nice that he became a good father and stuff. I really enjoyed that, and I liked his whole reservations with the whole time travel thing of like, you know, getting back if we can, but I'm not sacrificing what I've already got here. Like no way. And I liked that Steve got that. I liked their sort of making up. That all worked for me.
Yeah, they had to serve a plausible reasons why Stark couldn't want to help. I mean, any other reason, you'd be like, yeah, of course I want to help. But now if he goes back and changes stuff, well, Morgan wasn't there.
Yeah, that's
before
brilliant.
Infinity War. So if he changes everything, she's gone. And then he's helped everyone by losing the most important thing to him. So they had to give him a plausible reason not to want to.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting that you look around at Stark and you see Pepper survived. He's got a daughter now. Happy survived, and whereas you look at whereas you look around at like everyone else, and everyone lost people apart from Stark, really, who had obviously
gained. If anything,
gained.
Well, he lost Peter. I mean, that was the real thing for him when he was like washing up, and he picks up. You see the photo there of his dad, and he sort of reaches past it, and he gets the picture of him and Peter, which was
his sort of surrogate son.
Yeah, exactly. His ward.
Doctor Strange.
Yeah. Just talking about Peter, like. He's been an Avenger for like one day in his mind. That's what a crazy day. He should have just stayed on the bus.
Wow.
But yeah, anyway, so he finally sort of comes up, and then we have like the biggest car advert in the film when he's like driving around for ages, and you're watching that, and then the car pulls up and brakes with the logo right in front of the camera, and they like break the 180-degree rule just to get the car nice and in shot. Because what is this film not making enough money? I don't know what that was all about. But anyway, then Tony comes and says, you know, I've invented time travel or whatever, and honestly, I don't know if it was just me. Every time they talk about time travel, it took me so far out the film. It just didn't feel right the way they was talking about it as such a science. It worked for me in Doctor Strange because it was magic, but when they were just talking about time machines and stuff like that, it just didn't feel like reality anymore. I don't know.
I felt like they felt that too. Like, because even Scott Lang says, no, not a time machine, that's silly.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
well, yeah, a time machine. He's like, there's no other way to put it, but it's stupid. But I will say I felt some of that, but I felt that throughout all the Marvel films. Every time they've introduced something new, it's always seemed weird. Like Infinity War, it took me a while to get my head around Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Doctor Strange in space, because that wasn't them.
Right.
They're more grounded. Iron Man is a tech-based superhero. To then see him in space with a wizard, as he called him, like the Sorcerer Supreme, that was two worlds colliding that didn't seem to collide, because it just didn't. But eventually you get over it, because like the MCU before that, all Cap's films are normally quite political based. They're about the military, about the war, then it's about secret government controlling everyone, then it's the Civil War, and then to suddenly see him fighting aliens, it takes you out of, ooh, this isn't what this character does. But I personally did get on board with it after a while. I feel like stuff like this, you can't try and rationalize everything. Eventually I sit there and go, this is a superhero film.
It's really interesting because
shenanigans take place.
Yeah, it's really interesting because if I read everything I saw in that film in a comic book, it wouldn't feel weird, and I'd sort of jump on board and sort of be fine with it. I don't know why we're so much more okay with weird when you're reading it in a comic book. I don't know what that is. I don't know why that is.
It's probably because the MCU's been, this is going to sound laughable when I first say it, but it's been more grounded.
No, it has. It 100% has.
In the real world on that.
I felt exactly the same. Like, we're seeing Captain America in space. I was like, what is this? Like, it just doesn't feel right. Like,
yeah, the whole like hands up who's been to space before. I was just like, sort of like, oh, this is weird.
But it's just so
Back to the Future and that, trying to like make it all grounded. It was just weird, and they have their kind of own reason to explain time travel. Whereas like, oh, we can't go back and kill baby Thanos. That was dark with Rhodey.
Yeah, we sort of like signed
I
out.
would say Hulk said something in this film that made me so happy. It's something I thought for the longest time, where he says, going back won't change the future, because if something happens in the future, you go back to the past,
Then you wouldn't have done it. Yeah.
Future you, that never happens, and then future you never
paradox.
went back, and the event happens anyway. I was so glad when he said that.
Yeah.
I was like, thank you. I've always wondered that. I figured there must have been something I was missing. Like, oh no, I can't be correct here.
No, yeah. There's been so many theories of like time travel, and there's so many different sciences behind it, and alternate realities and stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was fine here. I just didn't. I don't know.
Can we talk about time travel?
Yeah,
let's go into it.
let's pretty much jump into the main. So the meat and potatoes of Act 2 was basically them. I've described it as, it felt like the final episode of a 90s sitcom where it's like a clip show, and they're sitting around talking about all their like greatest like moments and their best episodes, and then they go back and show parts of it. It felt like that to me, and I didn't like that. I feel like even if they did do that, I feel like they could have done it better. I think maybe it was the execution of it. So
Very kind of light-hearted Inception.
yeah, like
that's a good way of
like
putting it.
I don't know, like Captain America fighting Captain America, and I can do this all day. Yeah, I know. Like, it just felt like, like
Fan service.
That was one of my favourite bits.
was it? That is America's ass. I don't know.
I cringed. I'm like, is this
Yeah, it was a little
really fan servicey. It's like, remember this callback? We got loads of callbacks. It's just like, okay, we get it.
Like the thing with the Guardians of the Galaxy intro, where you sort of see Quill singing out loud, that worked to me. That was short enough. That was that's funny, seen it from another perspective, boom, done, we've dealt with that, it's over. That worked for me. The others were too long and too overstuffed and too look where we are. Like that was my part of that. What are your thoughts on it all, Dave?
I feel like going into that, like some people, as you said, like some people were either going to like that or dislike it, no matter how they did it. I will agree they were too jokey. Bear in mind that the stakes of what they were doing, one slip
agreed.
up and the whole universe could implode on itself. So I do agree with that. But there were some jokes in there that were perfect, like when Cap was fighting Cap and he said, I can do this all day. I thought that was funny, just because it was almost like Cap was like, yeah, I get it, okay, like, crap, I know what you can do, I am you. I did find some of that funny. There, maybe they did take some jokes too far, and there was, as you say, a lot of fan service, but I personally liked a lot of that. I feel like in quite a lot of films, they haven't acknowledged stuff that they should acknowledge. Even if it's not a big wink at the camera doing the finger guns, like, look what I just said. Some stuff I think did need to happen. The only there were my only problem with the time travel is there's a lot of loose ends that they didn't tie up. I feel like some of that might be because of the TV shows they're setting up, and these loose ends were purposely created so the story can be further developed, like
Loki's story.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because that still happened even when they went and got the original Tesseract from further back in the timeline. That event still happened. Loki still escaped.
Yeah, they can't replace
so
that.
what happens with him?
Yeah.
What happened in Thor: The Dark World? What happened in Ragnarok? Did Loki still do those things?
You can
Maybe
find out
his
if
TV
they
show
say
is in
99.
between those two periods of time. Like that stuff that the time travel does sort of irk me a little bit, and like the fact that past Thanos came forwards and then got dusted. Well, did he still do Infinity War then? Because I know Bruce Banner at the start tried to set the precedent by saying, if you go back and change something in the past, it doesn't change the future. And I get that he said that, but then
That's the other way round.
But
does it still happen?
It-
Like,
it's
in a way,
in my
like
head.
Thanos, he won though. Like he in that world, he won in that reality. Everyone got snapped.
So yeah, it's from a different reality. It's
Yeah.
not from the same timeline. It's from an alternate timeline and an alternate reality. That Thanos.
Yeah.
like Tilda Swinton
Yes.
saying earlier on, by
It breaks
Thanos
up.
then,
Yeah.
Into
it created a new timeline. So that timeline, in a sense, that timeline only existed because that other timeline existed, and that was actually, in a sense, like almost like if you were to get two lines next to each other, you make a cut and you just get one of them and put it on top of the other line, like further on. You've just sort of moved events, so their timeline now goes 2019, 2014 onwards. Like that's almost like it almost like shifts back a little bit. For like a little detour. I'm making sense in my own brain.
I don't know whether I feel stupider or smarter. I can't decide.
It's just the best you get with things with time travel and that. For New York, I didn't like that they were hiding. Like, I would have just gone and talked to the past selves because there's no bad effect for it. Just go, hey, we're from the future. We're gonna need that stone. Like you wouldn't notice it disappearing. It'd be like in and out. Like
I completely disagree there.
Is it the Loki thing though? Like where Cap just thought it was like Loki,
just
you know?
have Stephen Iron, hey, we're from the future. We're gonna borrow the stone. You won't even notice it's gonna disappear because you'll be back right away anyway. Like, oh
but
yeah,
then
cool.
all the events that went forward, they now know time travel is possible. The past versions themselves, Ultron, Civil War, all of this stuff. Well, let's just go back in time. We'll figure it out. Future us.
But that's the same going forward now
It's still
though.
gonna be
Change
messy,
that.
isn't it?
Everything they do forwards will change because of that knowledge.
I wonder whether going forward is going to be how Doctor Strange doesn't use the time stone for like the same reason where like he doesn't want to change the future or whatever. Whether he's going to be like, oh no, we can't do it anymore. Whether Doctor Strange going to be in charge of that.
This is something they're going to utilize all the time.
No.
This was a one and done. Like I think they're going to say the risks was too great, and
Yeah, this was the 1 in 14 million time they're allowed to do it.
yeah, any other time it would be.
It's a no-go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
but
I don't know.
yeah, no, like stuff like you say, like Cap fighting Cap. They set that up because not only in Thor: The Dark World did Loki pretend to be Cap at one point as a joke, they then copied that joke at the end of Avengers as well. Like this version of Avengers where they went back.
Yeah.
So if he saw another Cap, he would instantly think that's Loki because he had already pretended to be Captain America earlier on. That's a joke.
Yeah.
So, like, I did like how, like, if he had just come across Captain America and then assumed it was Loki for no reason, then I would have been like, okay.
What did you think of Cap saying how Hydra in the lift?
Oh my god, so good. When Rumlow and all that turned up, I was loving the fact all these people were turning up.
Yeah.
I did think when Pierce at the end turned up with Stark and Thor, a part of me was thinking, okay, is this gonna be a bit too much? Like, why were some of these characters not known about sooner, but then they were there really? But no, I thought that's actually what makes sense. Hydra would have been trying to get in there, trying to grab all these artifacts. But when they all got in the lift, I thought to myself, oh, here we go. Straight away, I had a flashback to Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, he can't fight them now. As I was like, that's going to blow everything that happens in Winter Soldier. And then the Hydra line just...
That's what I mean though. It felt like a clip show. It felt like, oh, I remember this bit. Oh, do you remember this bit though? Oh, what about this bit, guys? Oh, yeah, I know you remember this bit.
That one worked a little bit better for me. Again, maybe it's just because it wasn't as dragged out as the other ones.
Agreed. That was probably my favourite of because it wasn't. Yeah, it was just sort of like, you guys, you remember this, but some of the others just felt. I don't know.
The one I
Too
had the
much.
biggest problem with was the Thor and Rocket going back to Asgard to get the ether.
Yeah.
And it just felt like, oh, we've got Fat Thor again. He needs another pep talk, as he needs every film from one of his parents.
Yeah.
And, like,
Damn, we've killed both his parents then. What are we going to do? Oh, we'll just send him back to
as
one of...
good as it is to see Ray Russo again. And I just feel like, when's Thor just going to do it by himself? I would have thought, like, after he was king of Asgard, and obviously, like, he failed beating Thanos, but, like, I don't want him to keep relying on other people.
Well, that's what I mean. It should have been enough that they have another chance. Then it should have been, okay, I'm back, rather than him still being like, okay, I can do this. Thanks for the pep talk, Rocket. No, actually, I can't do it. I'm going to go get the wine.
Then,
are you kidding me?
Even then, that mission is literally... Well, Thor is going off talking to his mum. Rocket, you don't even see it. Like, you see him behind Natalie Portman, Jane Foster,
and next you know he's being chased by guards.
Being chased, and then they're back.
You could make it a 2-minute scene in and out of Asgard.
And it was just to get Thor his mojo back, and it's just like
I really liked the
the
Nebula stuff. So how Thanos basically found out. Like, I thought that was cool.
I like that part, but having the old Nebula go into the future, I didn't like that.
Yeah.
Just getting the headpiece and swapping it over. I'm like, really? It's like,
how do I look?
It's like like
how do I look, Father?
Fake moustache and some
Hey, Dad. How do I look?
It's a really weird kind of Clark Kent Superman kind of deal. It's alright. I'm a different one now. It's just like, okay.
Do that like when Homer Simpson pretends to be Mr. Burns. My name is Mr. Burns.
It's just fine. Yeah, come in, Nebula. Don't worry about it. It's just okay. It's just odd. But yeah, actually speaking of Thanos, really, we kind of got a new Thanos, I suppose, because the Thanos we see in this film and that they fight in Endgame didn't go through all the Infinity War stuff. So I think he was a lot more vicious, more Thanos. Like, I think he was more of a kind of a comic book Thanos, where he was just like a tyrant. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna kill.
Yeah, well, he didn't have his moment with.
Spiritual.
He didn't have his moment with Gamora.
No,
you know he. Wait, was 2014 Thanos? Was he linked with Tony yet? That was later, wasn't it?
I think it was later.
We never knew how Thanos knew Tony.
Yeah.
He just said he was cursed with knowledge.
Wasn't it after the Ultron thing?
No, he must have known about Tony because it's the Avengers.
Was it Avengers?
I think
it was when he
must have
fired
been
that nuke
Avengers.
into space.
Was it? No. When did Tony start having his visions? That's what it was.
He had his vision in Age of Ultron.
Age of Ultron,
Yeah.
he touched the staff, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's when they linked.
Well, it's Wanda's gives.
Magic. I'm sure either way he would have known about Tony and the Avengers from some point.
Yeah, because that vision didn't actually link them. That was just Wanda seeing Tony Stark's fear.
Yeah.
Because they all saw their fears, and when she did that, she saw his fear and then realized, hang on, he's going to destroy them himself. He's so scared. Like, she stoked his fears, and that's why he ended up creating Ultron, because he was so worried of what was going to happen. Thanos, I think, first learned about Tony when Tony fired the nuke through the wormhole and blew up the entire Chitauri.
Yeah, because
then that's why. And then Thanos was like, "Okay, this is." I know it's the post-credit scene of Age of Ultron. He's like, "I'll do it myself."
Yeah.
But that's because, like, yet again, another attempt to take out the Avengers had failed. But I think that's the only way I can know that he would know who Tony was, because he was the guy who blew up his first attempt at getting some of the stones.
You can see it in the video as well from Nebula's like eyepiece. When he went, "Oh yeah, these are the Avengers," and they paused it and showed Nebula. So I think he had some kind of knowledge anyway of what was going on. Should we discuss another mission for the time heist?
What else was there? What were we forgetting? Oh, the 70s. They went back to the 70s. So I kind of had the impression when they were like discussing, they were like, because who they were there with? I forgot.
It's
Ant-Man.
Ant-Man and
So when they were sort of standing there talking and Scott's kind of like, oh, what were you guys talking about? And they were like, oh, we could go back all da. I sort of felt like, I was like, oh, should I know what they're talking about? Like, I was like racking my brains trying to think. And they were just like, they just went back to an army base in the 70s. I was sort of like, oh, okay.
How convenient.
I was like, oh, did I just, should I have known that? I don't know. I thought it was really confusing that they sort of alluded to it like that. And I guess it was just kind of to have the moment with Howard Stark, wasn't it? Yeah, and can I just say, I love John Slattery so damn much.
Great. Yeah. I don't know. It felt like an odd. I think there was a little bit too much of it. I think it went on a little bit too long. Yeah. Again, it's probably stuff you could have cut a little bit of. Talking
about his hippie beard all the time.
It could just be like him seeing his dad, him putting the stone into the briefcase. Oh, it's my dad. Oh, bye, and that's it. It's like, okay, it's a nice moment. But he had it in the lift and that as well. I know he was obviously trying to pass on father-son advice for his kids and that, but it was a little bit cliched and how they handled that.
And also to work in a secure base like that, and obviously in a very secret area of the secret base, it was so obvious he was stealing something. Are you kidding
Yeah.
me? This random visitor's like sneaking around all jumpy,
you
doesn't know what his first name or surname. Are you kidding? Come on, Howard, you're meant to be like a genius. You're telling me you don't realise that this guy's like up to something.
You could make the argument.
And I'm sure you're about to.
I think I'm always going to be the voice of positivity when it comes to this film. I feel like maybe, even though he didn't know that's his son, maybe, how sometimes people just have this aura around them and they just feel like they can trust them.
Yeah.
Might have been something like that.
Yeah.
He doesn't know why. He has no idea who this guy is, but maybe he just didn't get any ill intent off of him because they're linked. He had no idea they were linked. He had no idea who he was, his son from the future. But maybe he just felt comfortable around him. His mind didn't instantly think. Like, obviously, he should do. At that point, he's setting up and running S.H.I.E.L.D. So he's the founder of that organization, so he should know that. But I feel one thing, a theme that keeps cropping up, and one thing I'd completely disagree with is a lot of stuff we're saying, should be cut for time. That should be cut. That should be cut. That should be cut. I disagree with all of it, even with the Fast Four bits that I was talking about earlier, where I felt like, the comedy dragged a little bit, or the dynamic.
You wanted 6 hours, didn't you, Dave?
Yeah, I would have took it. I didn't want a part 1, part 2, but like I would have taken it. That's my thing I hate most about films, is when they go, these two characters might talk, or these two characters might have something in the future, and then that's it. It's the one reason why sometimes I prefer TV over movies, because movies, they always allude to stuff, but you never get it. And that's what bugs me. And what I liked about this, even though some things I do feel like was dragged, I liked the fact you had a long conversation between him and his father. I liked the fact there was Tony Stark and Nebula playing a little game. It's the bits that make, to have the big dramatic bits, you need the mundane too. And I feel like these little bits are the bits that build up the characters. Like, one thing I liked in Infinity War but wanted more was you didn't see too many unique characters together. Don't get me wrong, you did. Like, you saw Doctor Strange, Spider-Man and Iron Man together. You saw Thor and the Guardians. You saw Black Panther and Captain America, or what have you. So you did see loads of different groups. But I love it when you see these different characters interact, like Nebula and War Machine, or Rocket and War Machine. Who would have ever guessed back in Iron Man 1 or Guardians 1 that these two characters would have interacted? I love that. But just having them stand next to each other isn't enough. I like seeing here's a little quip, here's a little joke. You noticed the fact I'm a raccoon. Or like the fact where the Iron Man at the start is like, until you just spoke, I thought you were a Build-A-Bear.
That's good. That's a good joke.
He didn't genuinely think that. But this is the first time he's seen the raccoon. So he's going to go, okay, you're a raccoon. This is weird. Because he hadn't seen Groot. He hadn't seen Rocket, because they had already left with Thor in Infinity War. So this is, even though he knows about space and aliens, this is still incredibly weird for him. He didn't see the battle on Wakanda because he was in space. So I don't know. I personally feel like lots of those little things are missing in films. I would happily see a scene in an otherwise quite packed film with 3 of them in a room just looking awkwardly at each other, because it is like, we're characters who should be together. This is an awkward interaction. Don't drag it out too long. But I feel like you need these things. If it's all plot development, all go, 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 even if it's a slow scene, but it's building the plot, I feel sometimes you do just need these little bits. Because we have been with these characters for so long. If this was the first film in a franchise, then no. Just keep it focused on the story, keep building these characters. But I don't know, I just feel like, for at least as a fan, especially in the last film, I know there's going to be more films going forwards, but the last one of, let's face it, this whole saga.
The Infinity Saga, is that what they're calling it?
Yeah. As the last one in this, I think they've done a lot of these callbacks and a lot of these nods, because this is the end for a lot of the characters, or for a lot of the big characters, for this big story, for everything we've been going through. There's always been this underpinning story of Thanos and the Infinity Stones, and this is the end. And I felt like a lot of these nods were good. Some of them were a bit obvious, like the fact when they all came up and then Falcon was on your left again.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, a lot of it was on the nose, but I was totally okay with it. For me, I think, as I say, because I'm going to be the voice of positivity, because I am such a fan and I tend to have my blinders up and I don't see the bad things. I loved all that stuff. Even sometimes when jokes were stretched a bit too far, I might have been sitting there going, okay, not my cup of tea. But I'd rather have it than not have it, even if I wasn't a complete fan of it. Like, the interaction between him and his dad, I thought was great. You needed that. He'd never had a proper conversation with his dad like that, at least as an adult. He only ever had as a child. And I think if they just hinted at the fact he'd had that conversation, it'd be okay. But to actually see it and to realise, oh look, his dad's an insecure mess just like he is.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. And you could have got that in 5 seconds, but sometimes I think sometimes it's better to have more. Like, just because you can have that doesn't mean it should only be that. If you can make it a bit longer, why not make it a bit longer?
I think
they were given the 3 hours. What other filmmakers are given 3 hours?
it's true. I think for the most part, I do agree with you. I think what my biggest problem comes to is the medium that they're in, and I hear what you're saying about TV and stuff like that. And obviously the business side of it is the money isn't there as much as it is with TV. Like, not everything's going to be a Game of Thrones. So I know they can only sort of have this in a film, but I think they either needed to stretch it out into more films with more structure. So do what the Lord of the Rings is, where it's, one major story, but it's three stories to tell the story. So you've got the Lord of the Rings, which is a big saga, and then you've got like the Fellowship, which is one complete story, beginning, middle, and end, and the Two Towers, beginning, middle, and end, Return of the King, beginning, middle, and end. Whereas this, I think my big problem with Infinity War is that it didn't have an ending, it didn't have a proper structure. My big problem with this is pretty much the same thing, although this did have more of a structure, I will say.
And it did have an ending.
It did have an ending, I can't deny that.
So what you're saying is this is better.
So what I'm saying is what I'm saying is I think it needed to be rethought out. I don't think it should have been. I mean, even if they release 3 films in a year, I mean, they do 3 MCU films in a year now, even if like we just had a year of the Infinity War films, and I'm happy if they just called it Infinity War Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, and they just sort of broke it down into a more serious structure like that. I think you just have problems with like the language of film and the expectations of film and the way a narrative structure should go when they overstuff it like this. I think it works in a book, like a novel. I think it works in a comic book, especially like a larger graphic novel where it's a collection of shorter things. I think it would work as a Game of Thrones type show, not necessarily a Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. type show. But I don't think it totally landed for me as much as it could have in this 2 not quite typical films. Whereas if they were, say, 3 films that were 2 hours long each, that probably would have worked better for me if they were structured like 3 individual films. What do you guys all think of that? Throw it to the floor.
Yeah, well, I think you can expand those interactions in like either in a TV medium or a comic book medium, because we've got 5 years, a 5-year time gap where we don't really know what's going on. Like we see the teams that are formed. We've got Rocket in space, we've got the people in Wakanda doing their own thing as well. We've got 5 years of worth of interactions that we haven't seen yet. What Captain Marvel's been doing. So like we can do that, but like with film, every minute counts, every second counts, and I'm kind of on the side of what Dave's saying is I am a massive fan of Marvel, and I can sit for like a 6-hour like, I don't know, extravaganza of just showing Rocket Raccoon and Ant-Man in a room talking about random stuff. That's great, but like, you can't have it bloated out. You've got to have it finessed into like a nice little compact film. James, I
think Game of Thrones is a good example, because I think that's really changed TV over recent years, and like the bigger budgets that these shows are going to get. And I think Marvel are now going to go into that sort of area when they're doing the Loki series, the Hawkeye series, the Vision and Scarlet Witch, and the Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think they're going towards that, and they're obviously going to have bigger budgets and be in the same universe. So I think it's just adjusting to that new sort of thing, and I think both mediums are going to learn from it. And at the end of the day, I think the people that are going to win from that are like us, the fans from that. I think there's room for both. Having TV means that we can get these smaller moments that we're going to get in the TV shows, but then bringing in the bigger budgets and bigger visuals that bigger stories that we're going to get now in the save it for the films, have it on that big screen. I think that's just going to create, I don't know. I've lost my train of thought.
No, it's a weird.
I do agree with some of it. I think a good example, just to say, like, I don't think everything they do is great, and I feel like you still get a lot of flack thrown your way if you say anything bad about it. But there was a lot of parts of the Captain Marvel film where a lot of people I went to see it with, I spoke to them about it, and they said exactly what I thought before I said what I thought, and that was they were bored. And that's not the whole film, but like the good first half hour or so. No, and that's, in my mind, a good example of when these sort of interactions aren't good. There was a lot of just this person talking, or a lot of this person talking, or a lot of, hey, look, there's a 90s reference, and there was nothing to it. It was just more throwing it out there for the sake of throwing it out there, and stuff like that I completely get. I get why that would just bloat a film. I just felt like there were so many characters in this when they had these interactions that didn't further the plot. You were still gaining something from it. It was still an exciting moment because there are so many characters. If you actually narrow down their screen time individually, it probably feels like they were there for a lot of time because you knew they were there off camera. But I don't know, I felt like it built more. And the one thing I did want to say, I forgot about it earlier, when you were saying about there being like a start, middle, and end, the normal narrative like a film follows, that's what I loved most about Infinity War, and I'm so glad they did with this. They didn't bother with so here's what you've missed, and this is what you need to know, and are you new to this franchise? They didn't do that hand-holding. If you want to know, the start, middle, and end was 10 years ago. Like Avengers 2, or Avengers Age of Ultron, I should say, Civil War, some of the Guardians films, Doctor Strange. That's your start and your middle. Here, they were just in. This is the film, or if you want to quote the end of it, it was the end game. This was the end. If you didn't know what had happened, then that's your own fault.
It's on you.
And that's one thing I loved is I couldn't really, when I watched Infinity War, and I think it was somewhat similar with this, there wasn't that normal structure you see in the film. A character has been living this life. Something happens that changes their life. They're rising to the occasion, but then they make a bad decision. Everything goes wrong, and they turn it around in the end and save the day. That wasn't there. And that was so refreshing for me. Because I hate that same formula being repeated in every film you see, whether it's a comedy, a horror, a superhero film. It's that same, here's their normal life, now their normal life's different, it's better, worse, film ends.
Yeah.
And I was so sick of that, and I'm so glad Infinity War and Endgame, it was more like, here's the story we're telling, screw what cinema normally does. And they could do that because they had so much history already built.
Yeah,
and they were just like, we're going to tell this story, and it's just a story. I know that's not how films are normally made, and it's not how cinema's normally made. Again, I feel like I'm biased saying that, but like you're like, say to like your comparison of Lord of the Rings. I haven't seen Lord of the Rings in a very, very long time, so I might be very wrong in this. But a lot of stuff I saw in Lord of the Rings, I was sitting there watching characters talk, and I was just like, oh, come on. And that was split up over 3 films. But again, not a huge fan of the source material. I saw it a very long time ago. Maybe if I saw it with adult eyes, I'd have a different opinion. But
or not even necessarily adult eyes, but imagine if you saw that with source material that you did respond to. So it's the same kind of structure of telling that large story over 3 films, but it's with these characters. That's kind of the pitch. But so moving on into kind of the big Act 3 now. So we've kind of done our little time heists, and then we got into the hour of the film that I enjoyed the most. Which was the final hour, the big battles and pretty cool, right? Pretty cool.
Amazing.
Right?
What a way to,
very kind of, actually, now you mentioned it, Lord of the Rings-ish.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
What a way to one up the airport scene. Which
what airport scene?
Steroids. 2, 3, 4 up there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's incredible.
Do
That
you
was what I
understand?
wanted at the end of Infinity War.
We got Wakanda instead, which is a little more small scaled, but
Yeah, it makes that look silly now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Makes that look like a little playground scrap compared to that.
Because as I said at the start of this thing, that was my one gripe, that big battle of Wakanda didn't have everyone in it. Like, it was really cool, but everyone was divided. And I said to like some of my subscribers on my channel, I was just like, what I wanted was that big battle. And someone even said, like in Lord of the Rings. And I was like, yeah, exactly like that.
Smart person.
Yeah, no, they were. Well, when this happened, and they were all standing there, and it wasn't just the heroes, it was the side characters.
Yeah.
Like, why would Doctor Strange and Wong be there without the rest of the sorcerers?
Yeah.
I love that they all came. All of the Wakandans came. There was just everyone there. And then that one scene where the camera almost pans around after he finally says Avengers Assemble, and you see Giant Man or Ant-Man or whatever you want to call him marching off, and then all the flyers going, and it was just, it was everything. Like, I need to see that film and just like sit there and skip through the frames just to see what every character was doing. That was, I think, the moment I've been waiting for ever since probably the first Avengers film, or probably ever since we knew this big confrontation was coming, like Age of Ultron or whatever.
Yeah, that's the moment in like the comic book when you realise you've been staring at the same like splash page for like 40 minutes. You're like, oh, I haven't turned the page in ages. I've just been looking at everything.
It was cool seeing Thanos. Like, he had no stones, just a double-edged sword, and he still took down Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man.
Yeah,
very easily. That's just like scary as hell. Like, without the stones, he's still really powered up.
Let's break down some of the moments. So the first one I want to talk about is Captain America picking up Mjolnir. James, what are your thoughts?
I think we've spoken a little bit about it off air. Like, I like it initially, like when when you see that slow motion of it lifting up, and you're supposed to think, oh, it's flying away, but like we all know that someone's picking it up.
Betty Ray Bill.
Maybe. But then, and he uses it for a bit, like just casually using it, and it's like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then he starts to use lightning.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the lightning.
I didn't mind it a little bit, but then they overused it quite a lot when, like, as the fight went on, and I think they just used that too much.
You know, like swapping hammers as well. You can have the small one, I'll have the big one. Like, oh, okay.
Oh, you see, that made me laugh.
I like that.
Hilarious.
When they were fighting, and he was like, I see you've copied my beard.
Yeah.
Like,
it was just so
like
weird seeing it.
Again, just like them two, like almost like comparing dick sizes. Like,
but I really like the Thanos versus Captain America fight. Just that initial one, what after Thor's been thrown aside and Iron Man's kind of been thrown aside, just before everyone comes in, and it's just Cap against Thanos, and like you don't have a clue what's gonna happen, and then Thanos brings in his ships of armies, and then you get this gorgeous shot, which is my favorite shot of the film, where you get it reminded me of Game of Thrones when you've got Jon Snow in the Battle of the Bastards.
Yeah.
It's Captain America versus that army and Thanos.
And he still stands up.
And he's still standing
Yeah.
with half a shield left.
Yeah.
And
that is your moment where you bring back the I can do this all day line.
Yeah, I thought he was.
You don't waste it. You don't waste it in the middle for that dumb joke. That's when you bring it back for the first time. That would have been perfect.
Yeah. But I don't know.
Go on, Dave.
Dave.
Oh no, sorry. I was just going to say, you saying about that fight scene, because I feel like we're about to move on to the next bit. There was two things. One, when he's fighting Thanos, that scene was incredible. The fight them two were having, there's the fact that it shows just like his skills alone is going toe to toe with Thanos until he gets beaten down. But I think they on purpose. I personally felt like Cap was going to die there. Fighting Thanos, because Thor and Iron Man were already gone. Both of them nearly got killed by Thanos until somebody interrupted. There was nobody less to interrupt. I think they were mirroring the fight with Iron Man on Titan, and they were trying to maybe make you think that was going to happen. And then I think they doubled down on that when he broke Cap's shield, and I'm not certain, but I'm pretty certain it looks the same as the vision Iron Man had in Age of Ultron.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is it. It's about to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad they didn't, because as you said, that Lord of the Rings-esque scene where he's standing there on his own, the Battle of the Bastards scene, where he's standing there on his own and all the army's coming over. That was incredible. And then he just tightens his thing like, all right, here we go. Just like, go to
Round
work.
2.
So
I see it again now.
I just wanted. Yeah, I could.
Yeah, I could.
Great. So this is something again we've spoken about off air, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, Dave. So what did you think about? Obviously, the characters are sort of throwing the gauntlet around the battlefield a little bit, and obviously Spider-Man then hands it on to Captain Marvel, and he obviously says something, like, "Oh, you're never gonna make it," or whatever he says, and then all of the female characters assemble, and I don't want to get political here, to be honest, but obviously there's the comparison to the scene in Infinity War when Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, and Okoye are all sort of, they have this moment where, oh look, they're all together and they all like sort of team up, and it's just a really cool, empowering, sort of female moment. And it felt natural, it felt fun, and it felt, important. Whereas the one here, I can't help but felt really forced and out of place. What were your thoughts on that?
So I was talking to some of the people I saw this with afterwards about this, and I'm trying to be careful how I say this, because I made the mistake of saying I didn't like the original Spider-Man trilogy and didn't get my point across well, and it weren't well received. So I'm trying to make sure I don't do that again.
Kind of scared now.
I felt like the best way to say it is the message I agree with.
Yeah.
The delivery.
I 100% agree. Yeah. 100% agree.
If all of them were together, every superpowered woman or at least superpowered being in that scene were fighting together, brilliant. I mean, as you say, maybe they're leading to an A-Force film or an A-Force TV show, like in the comics.
Yeah.
It's the group of Captain Marvel, She-Hulk, Medusa, and a bunch of others all are together as like a female-centric team. That would be great if he gave the gauntlet to Captain Marvel, who flew off and then is fighting a bunch, is about to get killed, and then Nebula jumps in, and then she's fighting, and then Gamora takes over.
Yeah.
And they all come in together, almost like they assemble, like the original group of Avengers did, or in the comics, how the Avengers always tend to assemble, where it's not, we're working together, it's, we just happen to come together and now we're a team.
Yeah.
Because of how well we interacted.
I agree with
aligned
yeah.
naturally. But the fact they all came down as if they were all hiding behind a rock waiting for that moment.
Yeah.
That seemed very... I don't know. It would be... I can imagine it would be the same way as if they did something like that in either Black Panther and Infinity War.
It was like kind of
If
like...
they changed it where they're like, hey, let's just pick every single person of colour or ethnic origin and put them together. Look what we can do. That's what it felt like, and I feel like it does a disservice to the message they're trying to get across.
I agree. I think it actually harms it a little bit. I think it harms it, and
it's like saying we're using you because you're a woman. Well, no, you should be using them because they're great characters and they tell an engaging story.
Agreed.
And I've got nothing against all these characters coming together, but they just did it in a way to say, look, we have ladies and we support ladies, which is a great message. But I feel like they're almost singling them out by trying to make it more inclusive, and it's a message they didn't need to deliver.
And again,
like they are inclusive.
And again, it harms it even more because they did it so well in Infinity War. It just sort of felt like on the battlefield. Oh look, we're all sort of together. That's cool. That's how that's worked out, and they all just team up, and it's like a nice little, look what we can do. And that was it.
And then we'll go in.
And then I wasn't crazy about that, but I'm being really nitpicky about this battle scene because it was, I don't know how long. I'd love to get an actual minute length of how long that battle was, because it felt like a really good chunk, like a good amount of time, to be honest with you. And I loved most of it. These are just the little things where I'm just like, oh, this was a bit annoying and that was a bit strange, but other than that, it was fantastic.
Oh, it was just, I loved it. As you said, it was like a splash page from a comic. I think the only other time I've ever had that feeling, and I know a lot of people didn't love this, was in Age of Ultron, where they had that scene where they're defending that middle detonator bit and the camera's panning around. It's almost like a slow motion and they're all weaving in and out of each other. Like, when I first watched that, I felt like that was like one of those big splash pages, and I got the same feeling here in Endgame. The scene I keep having in my head is when they all first charge in and you see Ant-Man in his giant form just taking like a big leap forwards, and everyone it's just
we've come such a long way from that 360 shot in Avengers Assemble in 2012, haven't we, of the 6 characters.
I think the one thing people forget about that Avengers one is they had that one long shot. Do you remember?
I love that one shot.
Hawkeye, I think it was, or it started off with Iron Man flying past.
And then it follows each one as
which is what I think they should have done with the female characters. I would have liked to have seen a one shot of them going like along the battlefield and like
seeing what they're all doing
together
and sometimes
I think that would have worked so much better.
How cool is it? Just one little moment that's just like flashed my memory when like Ant-Man or Giant Man punched a Leviathan. How cool was that? What an awesome moment. There were so many little things like that where you just like you just want to jump out your seat and scream and fist pump and everything. I want to like move on slightly because there's something I really want to talk about, and we're getting a little bit pushed for time, and that is what you guys now think this leaves for the future of the MCU, because obviously, just to briefly summarize the end, Iron Man dies, Captain America retires, he passes the torch to Falcon, Bucky somehow knew that was all going to happen. I don't know how, but it was like, go over there, Sam. Just you go, I'll wait here. I thought that was quite strange. But so now we're kind of left 5 years later. Peter Parker's gone back to school because
everything's all okay now.
Everything's back.
All his other friends are 5 years older, but he's got to go back to school.
I didn't think of that.
It's so weird. It's
like, all his other classmates have graduated. And like,
what if MJ is now 5 years old and she's like, no, I'm not interested in it.
No, you're underage. I'm sorry.
When your homework due in.
They might explain this. Because they say apparently Far From Home picks up immediately after Endgame. Yeah. Like I get a feeling you might see maybe like the end of the battle, or Peter with some of the Avengers after the battle's complete, or maybe it'll be Tony Stark's funeral. Maybe because their Aunt May was there with him. Maybe they then go home. For all we know, they might explain this. They might have said schools just weren't really in existence, and now they've brought everyone back and go, okay, let's get the world back going again. Would be a bit of a silly answer, but I could see that maybe being something they do. They might explain a lot of what's been going on, and we know, like from trailers and that Nick Fury plays quite a role in Far From Home, so maybe this is going to set the groundwork and explain, okay, this is how the world now works.
Do you guys think there's any possibility going forward that they can offer Chris Evans enough money to tell the story of dropping all the stones off? Because there's a film in that, or there's a TV series in that, or something.
Him and Red Skull together would be amazing.
He's going to have to go back to Vormir, isn't he?
Yeah.
See, there's a bit they glossed over. He had to have met the Red Skull to have that stone bag.
And how did he get there as well? Because it didn't explain with the quantum realm. Obviously, you can go into the past, but you can't space travel, I don't think.
So there's a lot that we missed.
How you get to Vormir is a bit odd, but yeah, there are some certain things that obviously need to be explained.
So...
Just don't think about it.
Well, actually, we're just seeing him in general, like an old man Cap. Just give him some advice. You know, even in the TV series with like Falcon and Winter Soldier and that. Some advice would be nice to see, but...
There's ways they could do it, even if they wanted to bring him back full time. From interviews and stuff I've seen, he's always mentioned about, that his contract's up now, but you never know what the future holds, blah, 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 blah. In the comics, he became old and then was made young again. There's always a similar story they could always do, especially with space shenanigans as well. But one thing I'm really looking forward to is the Winter Soldier Falcon TV show.
Yeah.
That, especially now we know it's not the Winter Soldier Falcon, it's the Winter Soldier and Captain America TV show. That I'm really looking forward to. I feel like Winter Soldier knew that was happening just because he knew Steve back there. And he knew if Steve ever had the opportunity to go back and be with Peggy, he probably would have took it. So as soon as he saw an old man on a bench that wasn't previously there, he probably thought,
but why didn't he go and say hello? It's his mate as well. They've been best mates forever.
Maybe afterwards.
Before into space, was it afterwards? Like maybe he did go and chat. But I think he knew what was going on. There was no way he was going to get the shield for his past. I think he knew Falcon was the deserving one. I feel like Winter Soldier feels like he's a bit of a broken individual.
What did you think about the post-credit scene, Dave? Or or not?
Yeah. Would you? Oh, do you know? No, I was going to say something, but don't worry. One thing I thought I would mention, you said about the future of the MCU and not necessarily
because the Infinity Stones are done. I mean, we could kind of predict a Marvel movie by going, right, there's probably going to be an Infinity Stone in this one, and someone's going to be trying to, X, Y, and Z, and then plot.
Yeah.
But we don't have that anymore. Who's the big bad that they're going to build towards over the next 3-4 phases?
Well, this is the thing. There's two things I thought, or one thing I thought was going to happen, they didn't. I thought they were going to allude at who might be the next big bad.
Me too.
And they haven't. A lot of people speculated through Captain Marvel it could be the Kree intelligence.
Oh, interesting. I didn't think that.
Which could be one thing. And speaking of Captain Marvel, I think one scene they on purposely did, which is, I always think it's really silly that he keeps doing this, but Peter Parker keeps telling everyone he's Peter Parker.
Yeah, he does.
It's so silly. But I think they made a point of having Captain Marvel and Peter Parker interact. I'm looking at these two as Captain America Iron Man version 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's just the idea.
A very different dynamic.
It was just so sweet seeing them together. It was like, it's like a favourite pairing. Yeah.
So who's your prediction for the next big bads? I mean, we were tossing around the ideas of Doctor Doom, Galactus, Kang maybe. Yeah. So because I don't know. I think maybe Galactus has got the most potential to be your big like Thanos
cloud
that you could build over. Another 20 films, whereas Doom I can sort of see being built over a couple of films, and Kang a few, maybe even like an Ultron level, like one film.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult now because they haven't teased what's next. I see the next Avengers.
Or do we build towards not necessarily a villain itself, and more towards Avengers versus X-Men, like a House of M kind of thing?
It's difficult because we don't know. Just making predictions. Why I think it'll be too soon to do an Avengers versus X-Men.
But if that's what they build towards, the next like 10-15 films.
But I'm looking just like specifically at like the next Avengers. I think we'll have to go smaller villain first.
Kang.
Like a Kang.
Build the team
maybe
first.
Build the team. Maybe a Doom if they've got Fantastic Four in the next Phase 4, which they should. The 4th film in Phase 4 just makes sense.
Yeah, you're right. You're so right.
Thank you, Mo. I'll take my check, Marvel. And yeah, I'd like to see Doom, but maybe it's because I like him. Maybe Chris Evans will come back as Human Torch.
Shaved head, rocking it out.
What do you think, Dave?
It's a few things. I don't know for a fact, but I've got to assume before Infinity War, before Endgame, they were already thinking about where they were going to go.
Oh yeah.
So when it comes to Fantastic Four and Avengers, I can't feel like they're Fantastic Four and X-Men. I can't feel like they've got them. I know they did say Fantastic Four is going to come, but they already planned Spider-Man. They already planned Guardians before all the James Gunn shenanigans happened, and they'd already had some form of a plan going forwards. They knew how Endgame was going to go. They knew how Infinity War was going to go. So I feel like they already have somewhat of a plan. With that, I feel like they need to have a big bad. I don't know if they're going to set up an overall big bad like Thanos, because if they literally just repeat the same formula, one big bad, I feel like they're going to do it a little bit differently this time. Maybe there'll be events happening in the background that don't necessarily hint at who the big bad's going to be, or maybe they pull the rug out from under you. This is going to be the big bad. Oh wait, they were killed in the second Avengers film.
So my kind of theory, I guess I was talking about earlier off air, is so the only two quote-unquote mutants that we've seen in the MCU so far are obviously Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, and both of those got their powers from one of the Infinity Stones. So I kind of theorized maybe now that the Infinity Stones have basically taken out half of all life and added it back again, are some people going to be affected by the stones in some way that's going to cause some genetic mutations, and that's how we're going to get mutants in the world, that they haven't been there before, so we're going to get them now? Is that going to be a thing?
Potentially. Sorry, not to
no, go.
Cut in. There was one thing I was actually still just about to say, but it leads on to what you're saying now. With, like you were saying about the enemies that were coming, I feel like in Far From Home, they're putting an emphasis on a lot of elemental enemies. So they might be going down more of a mystical route. I feel like Norman Osborn could be a great big bad.
That's a good point.
Really
if the new Avengers are going to be cast around, say, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man, what better villain to have? Because Norman Osborn has been an Avengers villain as well, quite a bad Avengers villain. But then, as you say, a big overarching enemy. I think Doctor Doom or Galactus would be great, because it'd be a great way to then bring in the Fantastic Four and then make those
Silver Surfer
come together.
Come on, come on, Marvel! Come on, Marvel!
Silver Surfer,
please.
With Avengers vs X-Men. Sorry, there's a couple of thoughts I had. I just wanted to get out.
Yeah,
Avengers vs X-Men. I feel like a lot of things they might have to do is do like a Spider-Man with it, whereas they had this plan and then they got the rights with Spider-Man, so then they altered it. Because originally Ant-Man was going to be on Tony Stark's side in Civil War, but then they got the rights to Spider-Man, so they swapped it. And I feel like they're going to have to do a lot of that on the fly. I feel like they've got their plan, but it's very open to interpretation. So right, there's slotting Fantastic Four here. Maybe 1-2 Avengers films down the line, they can start doing X-Men stuff. So okay, then let's bring in the X-Men, make Avengers versus X-Men like they did like Civil War in Phase 3. And now how can we bring these into the big final story? Like I think there's going to be a lot of on-the-fly planning going forwards. Sorry, but yeah, going back to your point you were just saying about how the mutants are going to get brought in. I think the Infinity Stones would be a great way to do that. A lot of, as you said, Tony Stark said, you mess with time messes back.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of stuff might happen. They've always said that Wanda was an enhanced individual, and they were originally, I think, going to go down the Inhuman route before all the Inhuman stuff got scrapped.
They're like, hold on the M, and you think they're going to say mutants. It's miracles. They're miracles, not miracles.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Yeah, it could be, maybe there could be something else that happens, something mystical could happen. I feel maybe it could be something post-Reality Stones is what they might put in. But I reckon they're going to make a lot of mutants secret for a long time. So then they can go, oh, they have been here since everything was brought back normal, but they were in hiding.
And then I wonder if we'll get versions of House of M, versions of Avengers vs X-Men, versions of Secret Invasion, even, although we've sort of kind of maybe not. Are they the Skrulls just fine now? Are they good guys now? Or
I think there's so many factions of them. There's guaranteed to be some radical factions of Skrulls.
Yeah, I'm hoping there's an offshoot faction, because Secret Invasion is one of my favourite stories.
I love it. Yeah,
I absolutely love it.
Maybe they'll do Marvel Zombies.
Or Deadpool kills the Marvel universe. So all right, I guess that's kind of our thoughts on it. Let's just kind of sum it up in a score. So we'll go through first, Dave. We do out of fives here to a 0.5 decimal place. So James, what you got?
Like coming out of the film, it's so much to like put trying to work out what it was, and then like having it been able to sleep on it a bit and think about it. I've kind of settled on 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. Cool.
Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm going for a 4 as well. Like I said, I came out of cinema last night and I was in like a stage of bliss. I was like, this is the best film ever. 5 out of 5. And I'm on the coming down now. There's some things I don't like, but there are a lot of things I do like. So I think a 4 is a very deserving spot.
I think I'm at 3.5 out of 5.
Okay.
I think a lot of my structural sort of problems and a lot of my Act 2 time travel clip show, like 90s sitcom clip show problems are still very much there. But I think, sort of weighing it out, I think I like hour 3. I don't so much enjoy hours 1, 2. So I think, but I think the fact that the 1/3 of the film carries it enough to a 3.5 out of 5. So I really, really enjoyed that last part. And there are a lot of interactions I like, and there's a lot of setup that I like. You know, going towards as Guardians of the Galaxy, etc., etc. So I think that's why I'm at a 3.5 out of 5. Dave, what about you? What you got?
Probably no shock to anyone at all, especially since I've just come out of the film, but I'm going 5 out of 5.
I was holding 5 fingers up. I knew it.
But I think it's because one of the things, like, no film's perfect. Even films that are my favouriteest films in the entire world, there's still stuff I go, ugh.
Is it your favourite MCU film, or do you have a couple of other that are sort of 5 out of 5s for you?
I need to go see this again because a lot of this is hype that's built up from just seeing
Sure,
it. My dopamine levels are pretty through the roof. My favourite films are Guardians, Winter Soldier. I very much like Age of Ultron, despite what people say about it. I think I prefer it to the original Avengers.
Wow, I definitely prefer the first.
Different people look for different things. I feel like
it's true.
Avengers film, they're not the Avengers till the very end. Whereas in Age of Ultron, boom, they're Avengers.
Yeah, I think my biggest problem with Age of Ultron was the trailers. I felt like I was missold, and I feel like the film that thought I was getting, I would have liked more. Like the sort of more scary, like, there are no streets. Like, that was like, oh, that was scary. And then I was just like, I got like, you know, Age of Ultron doing his like Ultron doing his like 5 minutes like comedy store, like stand-up comedy routine. I was sort of like not ready for that. But different review again.
Yeah. Do you, one thing I did want to say,
Say it.
So 5 out of 5. Things wrong with it, but I think there's some things you just...
No, I hear it.
There's a ceiling you can't eventually go past. But one thing I do want to say, and it made me laugh when you said 3.5, is because we always wildly disagree on the stuff we like. But I love that we can sit here and chat about it.
Yeah, it's true. And
absolutely love that.
It's true great. Because there's one thing that I hate, and that's most people. And
see you later.
and that's because people have wildly different opinions, and they see someone else's opinion, if it's different, as a personal attack on their opinion. And guys, it's so okay just to have a different opinion than someone. Dave and I often have very, very, very different opinions. I think when we first started talking, Dave, I don't even know if you'd seen a Star Wars film, and I was all about the Star Wars, and you know, I was more into some of the DC comics, you were more into the Marvel comic. You know, we was two sides of the same coin on many, many things. But we have always been friends, and we've always just got on with it and just had cool chats. And like, I've heard your side, you've heard my side, and everyone on the internet just needs to be more like us.
So I love this. This is great.
We're the best.
So tightly balanced.
This is all we should.
Beautiful.
But yeah, no, completely true. You got to think, especially with the medium of comics, so many different people who love the same characters for completely different reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
One person's
many
favourite
different
film could be
writers.
somebody else's worst.
Yeah. But Dave, tell us what you do on the internet and where people can find that stuff.
I lurk in the darkest of corners. Wait for the moment to strike. No, I have a YouTube channel called TheCaptainofDave. I play mostly superhero-based games. However, I am flexing my wings and branching out. I'm a peacock. You gotta let me fly.
So many metaphors. You was a tree for a second, then you was a bird, then you like a bird with flight, then you was a flightless bird. I didn't know quite where you was landing.
It's very apt because that's the sort of commentary I put over all my gameplays. But yeah, currently playing through Spider-Man. As of tomorrow, the game Days Gone comes out. It's very different from anything I've ever done on my channel.
Ooh.
And I'm actually playing it blind as well, not with a blindfold on.
Oh.
Most games I play, I know what I'm doing, and I'm just focused on delivering like a real in-depth walkthrough, showing you everything I can show you and the best ways to do it. Days Gone, completely blind. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm playing a genre I have no idea about. So it's either going to go very well or it's going to go very poorly. But,
it's exciting. Is
we'll
that
find out.
going to be recorded like normal? Are you live streaming or?
I'll be recording it, but I'll be getting all the episodes up as soon as I possibly can.
Exciting.
The first episode will be up tomorrow at some point, as soon as I can get it recorded and up. But yeah, other than that, a few other things branching out. I've been making a lot of comic book lore videos talking about the history of Miles Morales. I'm working on a Road to Spider-Verse one currently, and yeah, just more of that good stuff.
Excellent. We've got some announcements of our own to make. So at the moment you can find us obviously on iTunes and Spotify, which is where you're probably listening now. But we'll soon be releasing on Stitcher, Google Play, and on YouTube. So we're going to be putting all our podcasts out on YouTube in full as well. So you can find me at Mr. TT Green. James, where can we find you?
Floodgate 28.
Steve, where can we find you?
It's an announcement. I've finally got Twitter.
Steve, so it's been an ongoing thing that Steve hasn't had Twitter, but we're now finally announcing Steve's Twitter. So Steve, where can we find you on Twitter?
I'm at Stevie Poo Poo. Okay.
At Stevie Poo Poo.
Because apparently of the group, I am the poo pooer on a lot of things.
That's just because you don't like sequels.
So drop me
Okay, with the context.
Yeah, a bit of context.
Yeah. He doesn't like sequels. Any sequels.
He's a big poo pooer of all sequels. So at Stevie Poo Poo.
It sounds very Chinese as well, without any context.
Wow.
Dave, where can we find you on Twitter, on Facebook?
Twitter, Captain of Dave. Facebook is The Captain of Dave, and YouTube is also The Captain of Dave.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. Don't forget to rate and review on iTunes. More giveaways to come soon. Please check out Dave and his channel and all the wonderful walkthroughs that he does there. In fact, we spoke briefly about Marvel Ultimate Alliance here. That is one of your best walkthroughs, Dave. So make sure you check out that. You're doing 3, right? I mean, I assume you're doing 3.
Yeah, and if I can somehow get away through that Sony block HTCP thing they've got on the PS3, I'm going to be live streaming the first 2 games again before number 3 comes out.
Oh, that's exciting. Awesome. That's excellent. Juggernaut's back, right?
Oh, I can't have Dogs.
Excellent. So make sure you check it out, guys. Follow us all on Twitter, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.